A male student arrives at the school and immediately draws the attention of many students around him. From the way they look at him and whisper among themselves, he is regarded as someone frightening. When he enters the classroom, the attention does not fade. Every student in the room keeps watching him until he finally takes his seat, and the atmosphere only slowly settles afterward. Not long after, a bespectacled male student approaches him and reminds him about a plan for the entire class to go to the cinema together. The moment this happens, everyone focuses on the expression in his eyes, and many students assume that the bespectacled student has angered him. Some even wonder whether that student is trying to force him to join the plan. From his own perspective, Takashi thinks that if he were in their position, he would probably react the same way. He feels that this kind of reaction is something he has to get used to, because he senses that people will continue to see him like this for the rest of his life. After school ends, Takashi is suddenly called by a female student named Sasaki. She points out that 3 years have already passed and asks how he has been. The moment catches Takashi completely off guard, and his thoughts drift back to the past. 3 years earlier, in a classroom setting, a teacher ends the lesson because there are no more questions from the students. Some students prepare to go home, while others stay behind to chat casually. At that time, Takashi is already thinking that he needs to head to his club activities. His male friend Ken urges him to hurry, explaining that it is time for the regular selection now that the third-year students have retired. Ken believes this creates a real chance for them to enter the main team. He hopes that both he and Takashi can become regular players, although Takashi considers that outcome unrealistic. In the same classroom, Sasaki is receiving praise for her artwork, which matches everyone's expectations of a member of the art club. Her female friends admire her consistently good drawings and recall that her talent has been evident since elementary school. One of them encourages Sasaki to try drawing something different as well. From a distance, Takashi watches Sasaki and her friends. Ken notices this and asks what Takashi is looking at, then casually assumes that Takashi has feelings for Sasaki. Takashi immediately denies the assumption. Soon after, Sasaki calls out to Takashi and gives him a dolphin-shaped keychain. Takashi explains that he went to the swimming pool with his family the day before. Since he had previously given her a souvenir, Sasaki offers the keychain in return. She asks whether the dolphin keychain is nice, and Takashi responds by expressing his fondness for dolphins. The situation changes abruptly when a teacher calls Takashi over and informs him that he is 1 hour late that day. Takashi apologizes and explains that he was practicing earlier in the morning, insisting that he is not actually late. The teacher dismisses the explanation as an excuse and emphasizes that school is a place for learning, pointing out that Takashi has been slacking recently. Before the teacher finishes speaking, Sasaki interrupts to discuss matters related to club activities. Other students comment on how close Sasaki seems to be with the teacher, Yamashita, although some consider it natural since Yamashita serves as the advisor for the art club. Later, Ken tells Takashi that Sasaki is fairly well known, mentioning that she is beautiful and kind. He also adds that there are 4 people who are interested in her, which sparks Takashi's curiosity about who they might be. However, after reacting too openly, Takashi suddenly falls silent. Ken then remarks that Takashi can get along easily with Sasaki, guessing that this closeness comes from the fact that Takashi and Sasaki were classmates during the 5th and 6th grades of elementary school. After some time of baseball practice, the coach calls all club members to gather together. He announces that he is about to reveal the names of those selected for the core team. The atmosphere among the club members becomes tense, filled with nervous anticipation and quiet curiosity. When the announcement is finally made, it turns out that Ken is not chosen, and only Takashi earns a place on the core team. Ken immediately congratulates Takashi. Takashi notices that Ken's expression looks drained and disappointed because he is not selected, while Takashi himself feels confused about how he is chosen in the first place. Ken explains that during the defensive sessions, Takashi clearly performs better than him. Takashi thinks of it as mere luck, but Ken insists that it is the result of Takashi's ability. From Ken's perspective, Takashi's batting technique is impressive, and Takashi is also consistently diligent in practice. After reflecting on this, Ken strengthens his resolve not to give up and firmly believes that he will become a core team member in the next tournament. He also expresses that Takashi is his close friend, and that next time, the two of them will stand on the core team together. Takashi feels deeply moved by these words, while Ken urges him to say something because the situation feels embarrassing. Instead, Takashi simply asks him to go somewhere together. That night, Takashi tells his mother that he successfully makes it into the core team, and she praises him warmly. Matsu, who is also present, asks whether Takashi's team has many members. Takashi explains that there are 20 students from his grade who become part of the core team. Matsu then suggests celebrating with drinks, but Takashi's mother immediately stops the idea, reminding everyone that Takashi is only 13 years old. She adds that Takashi's father, who has already passed away, must be very happy about this achievement. Matsu then asks whether the bat Takashi is carrying is a gift from his father. Takashi confirms it and explains that his club allows him to use his personal bat. Matsu praises him, saying that Takashi looks impressive. Suddenly, a girl appears, clearly annoyed because Takashi is swinging his bat inside the shop. She turns out to be Takashi's older sister. She tells him to behave more properly since there are customers around. Takashi's mother points out that his sister says that despite the fact that she previously brought her boyfriend upstairs. Matsu reacts with surprise upon hearing this. Takashi's sister becomes irritated, feeling that the house lacks privacy. Matsu reflects that, regardless of everything, Takashi's sister is already a college student. Takashi then follows his sister upstairs and informs her that he has made it into the core team. When she enters her room, she warns Takashi not to step inside, and Takashi complies. As Takashi is about to head to his own room, his sister calls him again. She praises him, which makes Takashi feel happy, and he expresses his gratitude. Afterward, Takashi feels that his house is far too noisy. At school, Takashi is cleaning the blackboard when Sasaki arrives and apologizes for making him handle the classroom duty alone. Takashi reassures her that there is no need to worry, since he only has to erase the board. He then asks whether Sasaki is busy, and she confirms that she is. Sasaki explains that Shimizu from the second year calls her earlier. Takashi is surprised, knowing that Shimizu is a handsome boy. Sasaki reveals that Shimizu asks her out on a date. Takashi becomes curious about her response. Sasaki then explains that she turns him down, reasoning that they are still first-year students and that such things are inappropriate at this stage. Takashi feels a sense of relief. Sasaki notices his reaction and wonders whether Takashi is worried. Takashi recalls that Ken once mentions that 4 people are interested in Sasaki. He falls silent, prompting Sasaki to call out to him again. Sasaki comments on how tall Takashi is, while mentioning that she has not grown taller since elementary school. Takashi feels embarrassed by this remark. Sasaki then says that the classroom duty is finished and prepares to leave. Takashi calls after her and, with visible hesitation, invites Sasaki to go out with him on Saturday if she has time. He adds that he has a coupon for McDonald's. At that moment, Ken suddenly arrives and calls Takashi, informing him that club activities are about to begin. Takashi feels frustrated and quickly says goodbye to Sasaki. However, Sasaki calls him again and suggests eating out together on Saturday as a celebration for Takashi making the core team. Takashi feels happy, especially because Sasaki already knows about his achievement. He tells Sasaki to enjoy her time at her club, but Sasaki explains that her club is taking a break that day. As 2 female students walk outside the school grounds, Yamashita passes by and offers a brief farewell to them. After he goes by, one of the girls comments that Yamashita feels frightening. Shortly afterward, Yamashita crosses paths with Sasaki, who also gives him a polite farewell. Yamashita then calls her back and asks whether she has a little time to spare. Inside the art room, Sasaki asks if there is something that needs to be discussed, and she momentarily thinks about matters related to assignment submissions. Yamashita remains silent instead. He then locks the door, changing the atmosphere of the room. Yamashita tells Sasaki that she is a kind person, explaining that even though everyone treats him poorly, Sasaki continues to stay by his side. Without warning, Yamashita suddenly pulls Sasaki into an embrace, causing her to freeze in shock and fear. Sasaki struggles to break free from him and questions his actions. Yamashita insists that Sasaki has feelings for him and claims that this is the reason she treats him kindly. Sasaki begins to tremble in fear, especially as Yamashita moves closer to her. She makes it clear that he is mistaken. Irritated by this, Yamashita grabs her again and accuses her of merely playing with his feelings. He then forcefully tears Sasaki's uniform, leaving her cornered and overwhelmed with terror. Yamashita goes on to say that he has recently seen Sasaki spending time with Takashi, and he places the blame on Takashi for the fact that Sasaki does not return his feelings. At the same time, elsewhere on the field, Takashi continues baseball practice. He successfully catches the ball, earning praise from his fellow club members. Ken remarks that Takashi seems especially energetic that day. Ken assumes this enthusiasm comes from the planned outing with Sasaki, although Takashi does not consider it a date. Another teammate comments that Takashi is now also a member of the core team and appears to be living his best days, but he does not intend to fall behind and asks the coach to keep the practice going. Takashi encourages Ken as well, acknowledging that the words are true while also admitting that they make him feel slightly uneasy. Back in the art club room, Sasaki lies motionless and disheveled, unable to react. Yamashita takes photographs of her in that state. He declares that what has happened is now their shared secret, warning that if Sasaki tells anyone, the entire world will see the photos and videos of her. Sasaki is left in shock as Yamashita moves close to her face and pleads with her not to force him to carry out that threat. After that, Yamashita leaves the room without another word, while Sasaki breaks down in tears. That day marks the beginning of a life for Takashi that feels as if it is descending into hell. At that moment, however, Takashi remains completely unaware of it. The next day, Takashi asks about Sasaki, who is absent from school again. Yamashita responds that it seems Sasaki is not feeling well. At her home, Sasaki lies quietly on her bed. When the door to her room opens and her mother checks on her, Sasaki's mind suddenly fills with the image of Yamashita asking about her feelings. Her mother asks about her condition, and Sasaki says that she is feeling better. Hearing this, her mother expresses relief. Even so, Sasaki remains gloomy and feels a strong urge to talk to her mother. Before she can do so, her mother explains that Sasaki's teacher has come to the house to deliver copies of her school materials. The teacher also asks to see Sasaki's room, and because he has come from far away to visit, her mother feels unable to refuse his request to enter. The teacher turns out to be Yamashita. Her mother then leaves the room, saying that she will bring some tea, and Yamashita thanks her. Left alone with him, Sasaki is immediately overwhelmed by fear. Yamashita warns Sasaki not to skip school anymore, explaining that if she behaves suspiciously, the photos and videos will be made public. Sasaki grows more frightened and tries to call out to her mother. Yamashita then tells her to go to school the next day as usual, adding that if she is absent again, he will come to visit her room every single day. He gently strokes Sasaki's cheek, causing her body to tremble uncontrollably in fear. At that moment, Sasaki's mother returns with the tea. Yamashita excuses himself, claiming that something urgent has happened at work. Sasaki's mother praises Yamashita, describing him as a good teacher. After he leaves, Sasaki pulls the blanket back over herself and remains frozen in fear. The following day, Ken feels completely exhausted due to the intense morning practice. He acknowledges that no one expects such early training, but he still carries confidence that he can make the team in the summer season. When they arrive in the classroom, Takashi notices that Sasaki is present and assumes that she has recovered. However, Sasaki sits silently, staring straight ahead with an empty gaze, which leaves Takashi confused. After a moment, Sasaki greets Takashi with a forced smile, and Takashi responds in return. He assumes that she is still unwell. Sasaki then apologizes to Takashi, explaining that she cannot go out to eat the next day because she does not feel completely better yet. Takashi accepts this calmly, thinking that it is more important for her to rest, and Sasaki agrees. Takashi feels drained by the situation, prompting Ken to ask what is wrong. Takashi offers his hamburger coupon to Ken, which immediately lifts Ken's mood. Meanwhile, Sasaki thinks to herself that she is only sick at the moment. Suddenly, her friends come over and call out to her, catching her off guard. One of them asks whether Sasaki has heard the story, while another comments that Sasaki has been acting strangely lately. Takashi notices the scene from a distance. He observes Sasaki's vacant expression, even though it has already been 2 weeks since her absence. Soon after, Ken arrives and urges Takashi to head to the club together. As Takashi leaves the classroom, Yamashita arrives shortly afterward. Several female students begin talking among themselves, noting that Yamashita never greets male students. From their perspective, this behavior feels unsettling, and some of them speculate that Yamashita is suspicious, even labeling him as someone dangerous. They assume that he harbors obscene thoughts whenever he looks at girls. While these comments circulate casually, Sasaki is overwhelmed by fear and cannot bring herself to react. Sasaki's friends continue discussing Yamashita without restraint. One of them even remarks that she would never want to kiss Yamashita, not even in exchange for a large amount of money. As these words reach her ears, Sasaki suddenly feels nauseous. She ends up vomiting in the classroom, causing her friends to panic and crowd around her in concern. Hearing the commotion, Takashi returns to the classroom, driven by worry for Sasaki. Yamashita approaches Sasaki and asks about her condition. Sasaki falls silent, then apologizes and says she will clean up the mess herself. Yamashita suggests that someone should escort her to the infirmary. Takashi watches the scene with a confused expression, unable to say a single word. After school, Takashi calls out to Sasaki. Startled, Sasaki asks whether Takashi has already finished his club activities. Takashi says that he has, even though he is actually skipping them. He then asks whether something is troubling her and gently suggests that she can talk to him if she feels comfortable doing so. Sasaki remains silent. At that moment, a motorcycle speeds through the intersection nearby. Reacting instinctively, Takashi grabs Sasaki's hand to pull her out of danger. However, Sasaki suddenly pulls away, panics, and becomes hysterical, begging Takashi not to touch her. Takashi immediately apologizes and then walks away without another word. Sasaki tries to stop him and apologizes as well, insisting that it is not Takashi's fault. However, Takashi does not turn back. Left alone, Sasaki breaks down in tears by the side of the road. That night, Takashi convinces himself that Sasaki truly hates him. He repeatedly questions what he might have done to make her feel that way, and tears begin to fall from his eyes. On October 1st, Ken is surprised to see Takashi assigned to balance training during lunchtime. Takashi explains that a senior informs him of this during the morning practice because he leaves in the middle of training the day before. Ken responds that this is exactly what he expects from Takashi and encourages him. Ken then asks whether Takashi speaks with Sasaki the previous day. Takashi does not answer and simply walks away. Ken follows him and tells him not to worry, suggesting that if things do not work out with Sasaki, he can always move on to someone else. Takashi thanks Ken briefly and leaves with his head hanging low, his expression drained of energy. Ken is left feeling confused and uneasy. As Takashi exits the school grounds later, he notices Sasaki walking through the corridor with a gloomy expression once again. He wonders where she is going but understands that he has no right to interfere in her personal matters, so he does not approach her. Suddenly, he sees a look of shock cross Sasaki's face before she enters the art club room. Feeling that something is wrong, Takashi follows her. Standing outside the art room, Takashi hears the voice of an adult man praising someone's skin, scent, and taste. Confused and alarmed, Takashi crouches down and peeks through the gap beneath the door. What he sees leaves him frozen in shock. Yamashita is violating Sasaki's body. Yamashita urges her not to make too much noise. Takashi, witnessing this, is overwhelmed with disbelief. Yamashita remarks that this is the fourth time, assuming that Sasaki already understands, and adds that since this happens during lunchtime, he wants to finish quickly because he no longer has much time. Sasaki notices Takashi watching from under the door. Tears spill from her eyes. At the same time, Takashi's mind flashes back to the moment when Sasaki smiles as she gives him the dolphin-shaped keychain. He remembers her happiness when he invites her out to eat as a celebration for making the core team. The image of that gentle smile contrasts painfully with the present, and Takashi feels an intense surge of anger as he clenches his fists, realizing that the smile he cherishes is gone. Sasaki cries softly and pleads for help in a trembling voice. Takashi himself begins to cry. Yamashita hears her and remarks that it makes him sad. He claims that he loves Sasaki and describes her as different from other girls, someone kind and angelic. At that moment, Takashi forces his way into the room. Before Yamashita can fully react, Takashi swings his baseball bat and strikes Yamashita on the head, knocking him to the ground. Takashi then urges Sasaki to leave the room immediately. Moments later, Yamashita regains consciousness and grabs Takashi by the shoulder, questioning what Takashi has done to a teacher. Takashi is shocked by the sudden movement. Elsewhere, in a classroom, another teacher is conducting a lesson. Ken stands up and informs the teacher that both Takashi and Sasaki are missing. The teacher responds that they will be in serious trouble, even though they are supposedly on their way to class. Ken is left anxious and confused, unable to shake his worry about Takashi and Sasaki. In the art room, Takashi has already killed Yamashita with the baseball bat. Sasaki is left utterly shaken, unable to comprehend the reality of what has just occurred. Earlier in the past, Sasaki introduces herself in front of a group of elementary school students. She explains that she transfers into the class starting from the 5th grade after being moved from another school. At that time, Takashi is a student in that very classroom. He is left mesmerized as he looks at Sasaki, especially when she turns and smiles in his direction, an image that quietly remains in his memory. The scene then returns to the site of the killing, where Yamashita lies dead and his mobile phone is also destroyed. The reality of the situation crashes down on Sasaki all at once. Overwhelmed by shock, she begins to cry loudly and scream, unable to process what has just happened. Nearby, Takashi walks away while dragging his baseball bat along the floor. His eyes are empty, and his expression shows no emotion, as if his mind has completely shut itself off from the world around him. Meanwhile, in a classroom, Ken struggles to stay awake. Even so, he remains alert, knowing that the teacher in charge is extremely strict and that falling asleep would only bring trouble. Suddenly, Ken notices Takashi walking down the corridor outside. Takashi's body and face are covered in blood. Alarmed, Ken shouts out to him. He is deeply concerned, especially since mathematics class has already begun, yet Takashi continues to walk calmly, as if nothing is wrong. When Takashi enters the classroom, all the students turn toward him. Shock spreads instantly, followed by screams as they see him drenched in blood. The teacher is stunned by the sight and immediately demands to know what has happened. Takashi states that he strikes Yamashita with a bat and kills him. The disturbance quickly draws more students, who gather out of curiosity, but the teachers soon order them to return to their classrooms. Despite this, rumors spread rapidly among the students, including gruesome details about Yamashita being killed and his brain scattered. Among the baseball team members, Takashi becomes the main topic of discussion. Ken remains silent throughout, unable to say anything. Later, he spots Sasaki and approaches her, trying to confirm whether the incident is true. Sasaki does not respond at all. Other students begin to suspect that Sasaki might have witnessed everything that happened. In the principal's office, the teachers and the principal question Takashi about what leads to the incident. Takashi explains that he dislikes his homeroom teacher from the beginning and therefore kills him. At the same time, at Takashi's home, his mother receives a phone call informing her about what has occurred at school. She is left in shock by the news. Soon after, the police arrive at Takashi's school, followed closely by members of the media. Journalists immediately focus on Takashi as the perpetrator of a murder, emphasizing the fact that he is only 13 years old. To them, this case promises to become a sensational story. Among the students, everything feels unreal, as if they are watching something that cannot possibly be happening in their own lives. One male student comments that he feels a strange sense of excitement about the situation. Hearing this, Ken becomes furious and grabs the student by the collar. From Ken's perspective, Takashi is already in an unimaginably terrible situation. The male student responds by accusing Ken of trying to protect a murderer. At that moment, a teacher rushes in and separates the two of them. Later, one male student is interviewed by the press. He claims that the signs are already there 2 weeks earlier, pointing out that Takashi is often late to class because of his morning practices. He adds that Takashi is then harshly reprimanded by the teacher afterward. Many students find it hard to believe that Takashi kills a teacher for such a reason alone, leading them to assume that the relationship between Takashi and the teacher must have been deeply strained. Ken, upon hearing this narrative, insists that Takashi would never do something like that for such a trivial reason. Not long after, a journalist approaches Ken directly, asking questions about him and demanding Takashi's address and a photograph. Ken feels nothing but anger and frustration as he faces the growing intrusion surrounding his friend. Meanwhile, Kanoko, Takashi's older sister, wakes up from her sleep. Her boyfriend informs her that there is news coverage about the junior high school Takashi attends. The information shocks her, especially when she notices 7 missed calls on her phone. On television, a report is airing about the murder of a teacher in Yokohama, committed by a perpetrator who is only 13 years old. Taro Hashimoto, a professor from Mainan University, watches the same news broadcast. The presenter explains that, in principle, Children under the age of 14 are not held criminally responsible, so the juvenile court decides to transfer the case to family court, meaning it is treated as an ordinary juvenile case. Viewers begin to question whether there is a possibility that a 13-year-old could be sent to a juvenile reformatory. A novelist named Murata Natsuki comments that such an outcome cannot be ruled out, especially because the motive of the crime is also shocking, as it appears to stem from what seems like ordinary hatred toward a teacher. Taro observes the case and senses deep despair in the perpetrator. He is particularly struck by the fact that the murder weapon is a bat described as a keepsake from the perpetrator's father, which adds another layer of tragedy to the incident. Elsewhere, a young man scrolls through online discussions where countless people are talking about Takashi's case. Users freely exchange Takashi's personal information. Some accounts claim that Takashi strikes the victim 10 times. Others identify the shop owned by Takashi's mother and begin spreading its location. Another group of users shares information about Takashi's sister as well, allowing the situation to spiral further out of control. At the juvenile detention center, Takashi's mother comes to visit him. She reassures him that things will eventually be all right on their side and expresses confidence that the shop can reopen before long. She urges Takashi to focus on thinking about his own situation. Overwhelmed with guilt, Takashi apologizes repeatedly, believing that he has ruined everything. He breaks down in tears and continues to apologize to his mother without stopping. After the visit, Takashi's mother returns home. When she arrives at her shop, she finds numerous graffiti messages covering the walls, labeling it as a murder shop. Some neighbors comment that the graffiti has increased again, while others speak harshly about her intention to restart the business. There are also those who complain that the people loitering around the area are becoming a serious nuisance. Takashi's mother approaches them and expresses her regret for causing so many problems, but the neighbors leave without responding. Later, Kanoko arrives and explains that the media has even begun appearing at her university, bombarding her with absurd questions that she finds deeply irritating. She also mentions that her boyfriend and friends are starting to distance themselves from her. Kanoko grows increasingly angry, feeling that she has to suffer like this even though Takashi is the one responsible for everything. She then notices that the shop is now closed as well. Throughout all of this, Takashi's mother remains silent, standing there without saying a single word. On November 5, 2014, the prosecutor announces the sentence for Takashi. The decision states that Takashi is to be sent to a child self-reliance support facility for a period of 2 years, starting from November 15, 2014, and that this placement is to be treated as a mandatory measure. When the prosecutor asks whether there are any questions, Takashi responds that there are none, showing no outward resistance or confusion. Yamashita's wife, who attends the court session, feels deep anger upon hearing the decision. From her perspective, sending Takashi to a child self-reliance support facility instead of a juvenile reformatory is far too lenient, and she believes that such a punishment does not come close to matching the gravity of what has happened. Observing her reaction, Taro understands her rage. Her husband's life is taken away suddenly, without any fault of his own, and now the perpetrator is fully protected by juvenile law. To Taro, this criminal trial already appears to be a highly complex and emotionally charged case, one that leaves no party truly satisfied. Around the same time, Takashi's mother visits Sasaki's house. Sasaki's mother greets her coldly and immediately asks what Takashi's mother wants. Takashi's mother explains that she wishes to speak with Sasaki for a short while. Hearing this, Sasaki's mother becomes furious and states that because of Takashi, Sasaki has suffered mental trauma. She explains that Sasaki is no longer able to sleep alone at night. Takashi's mother apologizes repeatedly, her posture filled with remorse. Sasaki then appears, and Takashi's mother expresses her belief that something serious must have happened, because Takashi could not possibly have killed someone without reason. In response, Sasaki's mother strikes Takashi's mother and forces her to leave the house. Sasaki is left in shock by the sudden violence. Sasaki's mother warns Takashi's mother never to appear before her again. When Sasaki tries to speak, her mother stops her and orders her to go back inside. At the child self-reliance support facility, Takashi sits quietly, lost in thought. His mind drifts back to the past, recalling the time when he first meets Sasaki. He remembers how Sasaki often jokes around afterward, making him laugh, and how she tells him that his laughter looks nice. He He recalls his face turning red in embarrassment and Sasaki teasing him about it. These memories surface gently, contrasting sharply with his present surroundings. Time passes quickly, and before he fully realizes it, Takashi graduates from junior high school while still under the care of the facility. In September 2017, Takashi begins attending high school, stepping into a new stage of his life, carrying with him the weight of everything that has happened before. The incident takes place almost 3 years ago, and now Takashi relocates and begins a new school life in Chiba District. His family changes his surname to match his mother's former name, and as a result, his new classmates call him Takashi under this new identity. Within this unfamiliar environment, Takashi tells one of his male classmates that, to be honest, his perspective toward male friends has changed. The classmate reacts with curiosity, prompting Takashi to reflect further. Takashi explains that when he first sees this classmate, he assumes that the boy will be difficult to understand and hard to get along with. However, as time passes, Takashi realizes that the boy is actually kind and approachable. Alongside this change, Takashi now lives in a new place and carefully constructs an entirely new personal background. Every detail is designed to conceal his past, allowing him to survive and function in his present life without drawing suspicion. His existence becomes a quiet performance, built on avoidance and silence. A bespectacled male classmate then reminds him about their plan to go to the cinema together. Shortly after, a female classmate joins them, expressing excitement that Takashi plans to watch a movie and saying that she wants to come along as well. At the same time, she shows slight irritation because Takashi ignores all the messages she sends him. Takashi responds with an apology, attempting to smooth things over. Another male classmate leans in and whispers that the girl might have feelings for Takashi, adding that she is quite attractive and pleasant to spend time with. None of the students around them know that Takashi, under this new name and identity, is connected to a serious incident from several years earlier. To them, he is simply another ordinary student. That night, Takashi returns home and is greeted by his mother, who is washing dishes in the kitchen. Takashi asks if there is anything he can help with, but his mother tells him that there is nothing he needs to do. She also mentions that Kanoko has already come home. She explains that Takashi and his older sister have not spoken to each other for years. When Takashi quietly peeks into Kanoko's room, a deep sense of sadness settles in his chest. During dinner, Takashi's mother asks about how Kanoko has been living her life over the past year. After that, she turns her attention to Takashi. Takashi explains that he wants to spend time with his friends and that he plans to go see a movie with some classmates the following week. His mother praises him for this, clearly relieved to see him engaging with others again. Kanoko, however, reacts with irritation. She points out that their mother has been constantly worrying about Takashi, especially because Takashi usually spends his days off staying inside the house without doing anything. Kanoko then apologizes and says that she needs to leave. Both Takashi and their mother are surprised by her sudden decision. Takashi rushes after Kanoko. He tells her that they are finally together again and that he can finally see her after such a long time. Kanoko stops walking and responds that Takashi seems happy now, but she questions whether someone like him truly deserves happiness again. Takashi is left stunned by her words. Kanoko continues by explaining that she knows their mother wants the two of them to have a harmonious relationship, which is why she comes home that night and even cooks a meal. At the same time, she admits that she feels conflicted because she hears that Takashi might be happy now, and that realization fills her with jealousy. Kanoko goes on to say that, in her view, all of them are now cursed because of Takashi's case. Their mother loses the shop that she builds together with their father through years of hard work, and Kanoko herself can no longer show her face at university, let alone focus on her studies. Hearing this, Takashi apologizes quietly. Kanoko then brings up Takashi's close friend whom he leaves behind, Ken, noting that Ken's older sibling is in the same grade as Kanoko. When Takashi asks what happens to Ken, Kanoko suggests that Takashi should ask Ken directly, if Ken is even willing to speak to him anymore. Takashi accepts this reality. Deep down, he believes that he has no right to this happiness. What he carries with him is only pain, and he understands that this pain is the consequence he must bear for now. At school, Takashi finds himself thinking about Ken's situation. His thoughts drift so deeply that he fails to notice his surroundings, until his bespectacled male classmate calls out to him for spacing out. Startled, Takashi quickly apologizes. The boy then says that he actually wants to talk about a case he recently hears about, an incident from several years ago, where a student stabs his own teacher, and now that student is supposedly around the same age as them. Another male classmate joins the conversation and adds that, not long ago, a teacher is beaten so badly that blood is splattered everywhere. Hearing this, Takashi freezes in shock. They refer to the perpetrator as Boy A, saying that he is currently the same age as them. Takashi's female friend comments that their generation is full of monsters. One of the boys imagines how terrifying it is that someone like Boy A, who kills a teacher simply because he dislikes him, is now walking free. The girl shudders and says that the idea is genuinely frightening. The bespectacled boy agrees, stating that someone like that clearly has no heart, and that a monster like him can never live a normal life or ever make up for what he has done. Throughout the conversation, Takashi remains silent. Noticing this, the bespectacled boy calls his name and asks whether he is okay. Before Takashi can answer, a female student suddenly tells the three of them to move aside. They step out of the way, and the girl passes without another word. The bespectacled boy asks Takashi whether he knows her. Takashi mutters that he cannot understand her behavior at all. The female friend explains that the girl's name is Kahilai and that she is in the same class as them. Apparently, there are no good rumors about her, and people believe she has nerves of steel. Later, Takashi's friends suggest going to karaoke together, but Takashi explains that he has a part-time job and cannot leave his shift. While working as a cashier at a convenience store, Takashi decides that he must continue hiding. His case keeps resurfacing again and again, and he fears that his classmates might read about it online once they get home. He wonders whether they might scrutinize his photos carefully, but he reassures himself that it would be difficult to identify him from old images alone. After his shift ends, the store owner tells him he can go home. As Takashi changes clothes in the staff room, anxiety grips him. He worries about the possibility that someone might uncover his true identity. In his imagination, he hears the bespectacled boy saying that someone like him deserves to rot in prison. On his way home, Takashi feels lost, unable to picture how things will unfold from here. Suddenly, he runs into his female friend. They start walking together. Takashi asks why she does not go to karaoke, and she replies that everyone has already gone home. She tells him that she secretly hopes she would run into him like this. She also mentions that compared to when she first enters the school, Takashi keeps getting taller and seems to be growing more and more. Her words trigger a memory of Sasaki, saying the same thing in the past. Sensing his reaction, the girl asks if something is wrong, but Takashi shakes his head and says it is nothing. She then admits that there is something she always wants to ask him. However, just as she is about to say it, the two male classmates suddenly appear and ask whether they are interrupting Takashi and her. The girl bluntly thinks that, yes, they are very much interrupting them. The bespectacled boy laughs it off, guessing that everyone is simply tired. He then announces that they will go watch a movie at 3 o'clock on Sunday. Because Takashi stays quiet the entire time, one of the boys asks what has been troubling his mind lately. He even offers to listen if Takashi wants to talk about his problems, saying that he might be able to help find a solution. Takashi thanks him sincerely. Deep inside, he knows that he does not want to lose any of this. Even though he understands that he will never truly be forgiven, today he still walks home together with his friends. Elsewhere, however, someone is uploading Takashi's personal information onto the internet, information tied to his former identity, now linked to the name Yamasaki. With a smile on their face, that person hopes that Takashi will end up rotting in prison forever. In the past, Takashi's father gives him a baseball bat as a birthday present. Takashi feels genuinely happy when he receives it, even though the bat looks far too large for his small hands at the time. His father explains that the bat is a standard size used in official competitions. He believes that once Takashi enters junior high school, he will be able to use it properly and grow into a professional baseball player. That hopeful moment lingers, but the image suddenly shifts. The scene changes into a painful memory where Yamashita appears, groaning in agony. Overwhelmed by fear, Takashi tries to run away. However, Yamashita grabs Takashi's hand, preventing him from escaping and making it clear that Takashi cannot run from what is happening. At that instant, Takashi jolts awake from the nightmare, startled by the sound of his alarm clock. The time already shows 23 minutes past 6. Hearing Takashi scream, his mother rushes over in worry. Takashi quickly apologizes and reassures her that he is fine. This day marks the anniversary of Yamashita's death, and every year on this exact date, Takashi relives the same nightmare. No matter how hard he tries or how many ways he attempts to forget, he cannot erase the memory of how chaotic and irreversible that day is. At school, one of Takashi's male friends calls out to him because Takashi is standing still, his expression looking pale and lifeless. The friend asks about Takashi's plans, sensing that something is off. Before Takashi can respond, his female friend approaches and comments that Takashi likely cannot sleep the night before, confidently assuming that he spends the night thinking about her. The male friend reacts by saying that she must be incredibly fortunate, and she readily agrees. He then remarks that some people seem slightly jealous today and glances toward the bespectacled male friend, causing him to stiffen in surprise. When asked why he looks so uneasy, the bespectacled friend denies feeling nervous at all. Later, during class, Takashi's female friend reminds him about a CD, but Takashi realizes that he forgets to bring it with him. She appears slightly disappointed, especially because Takashi previously says that he wants her to listen to it. Takashi apologizes and promises that he will lend it to her after school. Only then does he remember that his house is not on the same route as hers. She reacts in surprise, realizing that she mistakenly assumes Takashi is about to invite her to his house. At that moment, another male friend suddenly comes over and asks what the two of them are talking about. Without hesitation, the female friend pushes Takashi toward the classroom exit, determined not to let the moment be ruined by the interruption. Left behind, the male friend looks confused, unable to understand what just happens between them. Shortly afterward, he is asked by someone else for his opinion about another person, pulling his attention away as the moment quietly slips past. Meanwhile, Takashi's female friend goes with him to his house. She feels excited because she finally gets the chance to enter Takashi's room, something she has clearly been looking forward to. Takashi, on the other hand, struggles to keep himself calm, reminding himself that his only intention is to lend her the CD he promises earlier. Inside the room, his female friend asks about how busy Takashi has been lately. Instead of answering directly, Takashi asks whether she is not planning to go home right away. Rather than responding to that concern, she invites Takashi to sit close to her, explaining that she does not want to leave after coming all the way to his place. Takashi cannot help but feel confused, quietly wondering why everything about this day feels so strange and unsettling. At the same time, back at school, the bespectacled male friend comes across personal information about Takashi that is spreading on the internet. At first, he refuses to believe it, but the face shown in the circulated photos looks unmistakably similar to Takashi, making doubt creep in despite his reluctance. Meanwhile, at Takashi's house, the female friend feels increasingly thrilled simply by being inside his room. Her heart races, and in her excitement, she guides Takashi's hand toward her chest. Takashi reacts in shock, completely unprepared for the sudden action. The girl, Yamada, then expresses her desire to be intimate with Takashi, explaining that she acts this way because she believes she loves him and wants to share those feelings with him. Before anything else can happen, the sound of a ringing phone suddenly comes from Yamada's bag. Annoyed by the interruption, she answers the call. It turns out to be one of Takashi's male friends, who asks whether Yamada is currently with Takashi. Yamada admits that she is at Takashi's house, which prompts the male friend to insist that she leave immediately. Takashi waits alone in the room as Yamada steps away, and during that brief moment, he imagines that if she had ignored the call, everything might have gone further than it already has. Yamada soon returns, her expression completely changed. She confronts Takashi, accusing him of deceiving her. Confused, Takashi asks what she means. Yamada explains that information about an old case spreads online the previous day, and she suspects that Takashi is the person involved. Takashi finds himself unable to deny it or explain anything. Frustrated and angry, Yamada calls him a liar and storms out. Takashi tries to stop her and follows after her, desperately trying to understand how everything collapses so quickly. Yamada begs Takashi to stay away from her, and in the chaos, she falls on the stairs. Takashi asks whether she is hurt and tries to help, even thinking about taking her to the hospital. However, Yamada refuses to let him come close, calling him a murderer before rushing away despite her injury. That night, Takashi checks the news on his phone and is stunned to see that his personal information is now openly circulating online. He begins to wonder whether everyone already knows the truth about him. In that moment, he feels that everything he carefully builds for his new life starts to crumble. The next day at school, rumors spread rapidly among the students. Some say that Yamada goes home with broken bones, while others claim that she is chased by Takashi while he shouts after her. The students begin to question who Takashi really is. Takashi arrives at school as usual, but this time, countless eyes follow him wherever he goes. When he meets his two male friends, he greets them and asks about Yamada's condition. One of them replies that no matter how well she recovers, she will still be left with scars. Takashi tries to apologize for frightening them, but both friends ignore him completely. Kahilai, who witnesses the exchange from a distance, immediately understands that information about Takashi has already spread. She senses that Takashi simply wants to return to a normal life, yet she believes that such a thing is no longer possible for him. At another high school, students are also actively discussing the leaked personal details about Takashi. They know that he is currently living in the Chiba district. One student decides to show the information to Sasaki. When Sasaki sees it, painful memories she tries so hard to bury suddenly resurface, forcing their way back into her mind despite all her efforts to forget. In the principal's office, Takashi explains the incident involving Yamada in a calm but tense atmosphere. The teacher informs him that, according to Yamada's statement, the entire situation occurs because Takashi chases her aggressively, and the teacher asks whether this account is true. Takashi admits that he does chase after Yamada, but he clarifies that he has no intention of making her fall or causing her any harm. The teacher then adds that when Yamada falls, she claims that Takashi gives her the impression of someone who intends to kill her. Hearing this, Takashi feels frustrated and begins to question why Yamada forms such a terrifying impression of him. The teacher interprets Takashi's presence as something unsettling rather than openly violent, and that interpretation itself carries a sense of fear. Other teachers begin to question whether the principal is truly confident that Takashi is not at fault. The principal responds that Takashi immediately admits to chasing Yamada, which suggests honesty rather than denial. Despite this, several teachers question why the school accepts Takashi in the first place, expressing that his situation feels deeply troubling and burdensome for the school. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Yamada returns and explains that, according to the doctor, there is swelling around her eye. The students ask whether there are any serious complications, and Yamada replies that it is only an injury. Some students insist that Takashi should leave the school and stop attending altogether, while others find it hard to believe that he could do such a thing to a girl. Takashi overhears this conversation from outside. Yamada continues by saying that, at that moment, she feels as if Takashi wants to kill her or plans to do something terrible to her, possibly even to violate her. Overcome with anger, Takashi suddenly enters the classroom and demands to know why Yamada thinks that way about him. Yamada becomes visibly frightened, and the surrounding students are struck by how intimidating Takashi's eyes look in that moment. Later, at the shop where Takashi works part-time, his boss dismisses him in a gentle but firm manner. The boss explains that fewer customers are coming in because of rumors suggesting that the shop is connected to dishonest business practices. When Takashi tries to respond, the boss reassures him that he does not personally believe the rumors, but acknowledges that this is simply the reality they have to face. Takashi expresses his gratitude for being given the opportunity to work there in the first place. Another employee worries that Takashi might hold a grudge, but the boss tells that employee to be careful with their words. When Takashi returns home, his mother greets him and asks whether he has worked that day. Takashi answers that he does not. He realizes that his mother still does not know what is happening at school. For a moment, he considers placing his school card on the table as a sign that he might not return to school anymore. However, his mother cheerfully mentions how glad she is that Takashi plans to go to the movies with his friends, adding that everyone is talking about how good the film is. As Takashi prepares to respond, he notices that his mother does not seem afraid of him at all. He decides that he does not want this situation to trouble her, especially since she has done so much to give him a normal life. His mother says that she is looking forward to seeing Takashi enjoy himself. Takashi replies that he is looking forward to it as well. In that moment, he makes a quiet decision not to let his mother worry about him any longer. He helps her with chores around the house, and his mother thanks him. Unaware of the weight he continues to carry in silence. The next day, Sasaki comes to Takashi's school, and the students immediately begin talking about her presence. Sasaki is determined not to let Takashi slip away again, because there is something important she needs to tell him. As she walks through the school grounds, she overhears students speaking about Takashi as a liar and a murderer. Some of them also mention that the vice principal is afraid Takashi might return one day to take revenge. Sasaki soon realizes that the people talking about Takashi are none other than his two male friends and Yamada. Not long after, Takashi walks out of the school building and several students shout insults at him, telling him to return to prison or simply die. Sasaki witnesses everything in silence. Tears begin to fall from her eyes as she wonders whether this is the kind of treatment Takashi endures every single day. Unable to remain silent any longer, Sasaki calls out to him. She reflects on how 3 years have already passed, yet everything has only become worse. She also suspects that Takashi may hate her. Sasaki then reveals that after Takashi is arrested, she never gets the chance to tell him that after being raped, what she truly wants is to see him again. Hearing this, Takashi breaks down in tears and reveals that all he ever wants during that time is to meet Sasaki once more. They then go to a park together. Sasaki talks about how she now attends Nantoko High School. Takashi is genuinely impressed, knowing that it is a prestigious school in her district, and he praises her for it. Sasaki asks whether Takashi is truly fine being around her after everything that has happened. Takashi answers honestly that he cannot pretend his life at his current school is normal or happy, but he feels that everything becomes equal the moment he sees Sasaki. Sasaki recalls the students mocking Takashi earlier and feels a deep ache in her chest. She then suggests that they exchange phone numbers, assuming that Takashi might not even own a phone. Takashi admits that he may be a bit old-fashioned, but he does have a phone that he receives as a Lunar New Year gift. Sasaki feels relieved and happy, and they exchange contact information. Soon after, Sasaki says that she needs to head home. Takashi is surprised to learn that Sasaki commutes back and forth to Yokohama, and he apologizes for taking up so much of her time. They part ways at the train station. While riding the train, Takashi sends a message saying that he is glad he gets to see Sasaki today, and he begins to think about inviting her out for a meal sometime. At the same time, Sasaki wants to apologize to Takashi because she truly understands how he has felt ever since their elementary school days. Now Takashi carries the ruins of his own life on his shoulders, yet he still worries about protecting Sasaki. Back at school, a male student wearing glasses greets Sasaki, and she naturally holds his hand as they walk together. For Sasaki, it is difficult to find the words to tell Takashi that she already has someone she loves. After returning home and finishing her bath, Sasaki notices that Takashi sends another message. The message contains an invitation to go to the aquarium together on Saturday. At school the next day, Sasaki feels conflicted and unsure of what she should say. On one hand, she knows that Takashi is genuinely excited about the idea of spending time with her. On the other hand, she is already involved with the male student who wears glasses, and that reality weighs heavily on her thoughts. In the school garden, the bespectacled student is quietly sketching when he becomes aware of Sasaki's presence. He notices her and acknowledges her, prompting Sasaki to explain that she is simply taking a walk. She then asks whether he is working on assignments for the art club, but he explains that he is only passing the time. He asks whether Sasaki has any plans for Saturday, and mentions that he has managed to obtain 2 tickets to a new Van Gogh exhibition. From Sasaki's earlier hesitation, he assumes that she may not be able to go with him. Sasaki becomes increasingly conflicted because the bespectacled student, who is also her senior, directly invites her to go out together, and she herself wants to accept the invitation. At that moment, Takashi sends another message, apologizing for disturbing her and acknowledging that she may already have plans. He expresses that he feels his sudden invitation might have been rude, and he shows that he respects her situation. Sasaki is reminded of the cruel jeers she witnesses directed at Takashi at his school. After reflecting on this, she apologizes to the bespectacled student and tells him that she already has plans for Saturday. As she does so, Sasaki thinks about how Takashi is trying to build a happy life again, and she feels an overwhelming sense of guilt, as if she is the only one standing beside him now. When Saturday arrives, Takashi feels genuinely happy as he walks together with Sasaki toward the aquarium. However, Sasaki remains quiet for most of the time, which makes Takashi uneasy. He senses something is on her mind, but Sasaki insists that nothing is wrong and explains that she is simply thinking about how long it has been since she last visits an aquarium. This causes Takashi to recall the dolphin keychain that Sasaki once gives him. He remembers clearly how precious that small gift becomes to him, something he cherishes deeply over the years. As this realization sinks in, Takashi becomes cautious and feels the need to apologize internally, worried that he might have unintentionally brought up painful memories. Sasaki reassures him through her demeanor, making it clear that he does not need to treat her as if she is the source of any trouble, and that she is truly fine. Takashi feels a quiet happiness growing inside him, as the moment feels like a dream he once has, a future where he and Sasaki can be happy together, just the two of them, separate from the rest of the world. Sasaki, meanwhile, feels a subtle sense of shame toward Takashi, knowing the truth she still cannot say. She then points out an aquarium brochure and explains that there is a special show being held, encouraging Takashi to go see it with her. Together, they watch the dolphin performance and genuinely enjoy the experience, sharing a rare moment of lightness and calm. Nearby, Takashi overhears a young man expressing a desire to kiss his partner, only to be gently refused because they are in a public place where everyone can see, a small, ordinary scene that contrasts quietly with the weight of Takashi and Sasaki's shared past. Takashi notices that most of the people around him seem to be spending time with their partners. Sasaki senses his hesitation and asks whether something is bothering him. Takashi then admits that he has been wanting to ask for a long time whether Sasaki already has a boyfriend. He makes it clear to himself that he is only curious, and that Sasaki does not need to mention any names at all. Sasaki responds that she does not have a boyfriend, and that she has never been on a date. Hearing this, Takashi feels a sense of relief and calm, and he suggests that they move on to watch the next performance together. Inside, Sasaki reflects that there is someone she likes, yet fear holds her back. She cannot force herself into a relationship, and even the idea of dating feels overwhelming. Physical closeness with men fills her with anxiety, and even talking about dating is enough to unsettle her emotions. She cannot allow anyone to know about the assault in her past, nor about the bespectacled boy named Sugita. As these thoughts linger, Sasaki notices a message from Sugita saying that he will be late because the line is very long. Takashi soon returns carrying food and feels apologetic for making Sasaki wait. When Sasaki tries to pay, Takashi stops her, wanting to treat her instead. He explains that he still has a fair amount of money left from his part-time work. Takashi shares that he has recently found a delivery job and that this is the first job he genuinely enjoys. Hearing this makes Sasaki feel sincerely happy for him. Takashi then asks about Sasaki's plans after graduating from high school, showing interest in her future. At that moment, a girl named Ida happens to see Sasaki together with a boy. After finishing their meal, Sasaki and Takashi continue walking around. Sasaki feels that the day is truly enjoyable. For Takashi, the best part is the sense of anonymity, as no one recognizes him here, allowing him to feel as though he can momentarily return to being a normal person. He suggests that next time they could go somewhere less crowded. Sasaki responds that simply hearing the words "next time" already fills her with excitement. Eventually, they part ways. On the journey home, Takashi reflects on how pleasant the day has been. At first, he feels anxious about many things, but after speaking with Sasaki, he realizes that things turn out to be fine. He assumes that Sasaki should already be on her way home as well. When Takashi arrives near his house, he sees his mother standing outside, apologizing repeatedly to the property owner and promising to clean everything as soon as possible. From a short distance away, Takashi notices numerous graffiti marks on the house. His mother continues to bow and apologize for causing so much trouble. As she tries to scrub the markings away, neighbors nearby whisper about the murderer who supposedly lives there. Watching from afar, Takashi cannot understand why someone innocent has to pay such a heavy price, why others choose not to end things cleanly, and instead keep dragging him deeper into what feels like an endless hell. Meanwhile, Sasaki receives a phone call from Ida. Ida tells her that she sees Sasaki together with Takashi and asks how long it has been going on. The neighbors talk among themselves about the teenager involved in the Yokohama incident, believing that he lives in room 206. Fear spreads quietly between them, and they watch closely, waiting to see whether the family will eventually move away. Inside the house, Takashi asks his mother whether she already knows about everything. She is fully aware that the information has spread across the internet, and she admits that she tries to keep it away from him for as long as possible. She tells herself that she wants to face the situation with courage, as long as Takashi can remain happy at school. Even so, Takashi cannot completely ignore the reality surrounding him. Takashi reassures his mother that it is all right and that he is dealing with it strongly. Although the news has already reached his school, he lies and claims that everyone there supports him. In truth, he remembers clearly how Yamada once accused him, but he chooses not to mention it. Takashi asks his mother not to worry about him anymore. His mother then wonders what truly happened on that day, unable to fully grasp the weight of the events. Meanwhile, in Yokohama, Ida waits quietly for Sasaki. When Sasaki arrives, Ida apologizes for calling her out like this, explaining that there is something that needs to be discussed privately. Sasaki admits that she is indeed spending time with the man connected to that incident. Ida reacts with confusion, pointing out internally that Sasaki is a witness to the murder, and that the person involved is the last thing Sasaki should have to face again. Ida assumes that Takashi may be forcing Sasaki to meet him. Sasaki denies this completely. Sasaki explains that Takashi is nothing like how people describe him on social media or how he is portrayed in public discussions. She has known him since elementary school and understands his true nature. Sasaki describes how Takashi lives under constant hardship every single day. Ida acknowledges that Sasaki is genuinely kind, but also careless in this situation, and warns herself that such kindness can be dangerous. Sasaki lowers her head, appearing drained, and Ida realizes that she may not know Sasaki well enough to decide what Sasaki should or should not do. Sasaki expresses gratitude for Ida's concern and asks her not to worry too much, explaining that this matter exists only between herself and Takashi. She also asks Ida to keep this information private. Ida understands the seriousness of this request. Sasaki then turns and leaves. Before she goes too far, Ida calls out to her, letting her know that if Sasaki ever faces trouble, she should reach out, because Ida is willing to listen at any time as her friend. Sasaki feels deeply moved and silently agrees before continuing on her way. At the high school where Takashi studies, he sits alone while the laughter of his classmates fills the room around him. He quietly searches for the person who vandalizes his house, considering the possibility that it is Yamada, since Yamada knows his home address. Online posts do not reveal any information about where Takashi lives, which strengthens his suspicion. As Takashi keeps watching him, Yamada notices the attention and reacts to it. Takashi immediately withdraws and feels the need to apologize. Takashi explains that someone leaves graffiti on his house the previous night. Yamada assumes that Takashi is accusing him and reacts defensively, insisting that someone like him would never do such a thing and would not even waste a moment near Takashi's home. Takashi backs down and apologizes again. Shortly after that, one of Takashi's male classmates brings up Takashi's relationship with his older sister. The classmate mentions rumors that Takashi's sister now works at a nightclub. Another male student with glasses adds that he hears her services can even be arranged online. The boys continue speculating about how long she will keep doing that kind of work. Hearing this, Takashi's anger finally breaks through. He lashes out and attacks his classmate. Other students gather around in shock, while some rush toward the teacher's office to call for help. In the middle of the chaos, Takashi comes back to his senses when Kahilai approaches and taps his shoulder. Takashi follows Kahilai away from the scene. Behind them, Yamada loudly claims that Takashi is finally showing his true nature. Takashi feels grateful to Kahilai for stopping him and pulling him back before things go further. Kahilai makes it clear that he does not want to get involved with Takashi, yet everything unfolds exactly as he expects. Takashi is left confused by this reaction. When Kahilai turns to leave, Takashi tries to stop him. Kahilai acknowledges that he understands why Takashi loses his temper, since people constantly provoke and stir up trouble. At the same time, he warns Takashi not to present himself as someone who looks capable of killing without reason. Those words trigger Takashi's memory of his mother's question about that day. He remembers how she believes that Takashi shows no signs of being able to kill or harm someone without reason. Perhaps that belief comes from a mother's love, but she genuinely feels that she is not mistaken in seeing him as the same child he has always been. Takashi reflects on this and feels regret, knowing that he has no clear explanation. No matter what his fault is, he feels the need to apologize to his mother. Later, Takashi chooses to leave the house, using the excuse that he wants to check whether new graffiti appears again. His mother watches him go, filled with quiet uncertainty. While at school, Sasaki calls Takashi and tells him that one of her friends sees her together with him at the aquarium. Takashi grows anxious and worries about whether everything is all right. Sasaki explains that her friend is a good person, so she believes it is probably fine, even though she still feels slightly uneasy. Takashi assures himself that it does not matter. He understands that Sasaki does not want to remember what happens in the past and does not want others to know about it. Because of that, Takashi resolves to continue protecting her. For him, there is no turning back anymore. At his workplace, Takashi's supervisor informs him that he will be training under a senior worker for the next few weeks, and Takashi accepts this without complaint. He then discovers that Kahilai is actually his senior at work. Kahilai assumes that the workplace is simply short on manpower. Kahilai mentions that he notices Takashi during the interview and already expects that Takashi will end up working there. Although Kahilai truly does not want to be involved with him, he already knows who Takashi is even before everything spreads across social media. Hearing this, Takashi starts to wonder how much Kahilai knows about that man from the incident. After finishing work, Takashi walks home together with Kahilai. Along the way, Kahilai asks whether Takashi is simply exhausted because it is his first day on the job. He also mentions that Takashi's muscles will likely ache the next day, as his body is not yet used to the physical strain. Takashi responds with a light laugh, then wonders whether they should continue the conversation they start earlier. He remembers that Kahilai has already told him that he knows about what happens long before the incident spreads across the internet. Kahilai senses that Takashi might suspect him of being the one who leaks the information online. Takashi immediately denies that thought, making it clear that he does not see Kahilai that way. Kahilai points out that, from Takashi's perspective, it is natural not to know whether he can truly be trusted. For Kahilai, however, finding out who Takashi really is comes easily, because he describes himself as Takashi's #1 observer, someone who pays close attention to him. Takashi feels confused by those words. Before he can ask for clarification, Kahilai prepares to leave. Takashi asks Kahilai to wait for a moment. Kahilai then explains that on October 1st, exactly 3 years ago, after Takashi kills that teacher, people on social media begin spreading information about him. Over time, they finally manage to identify Takashi's workplace and school, which leads to widespread chaos around his life. Kahilai senses a strong obsession behind those actions, as if someone is fixated on Takashi. He believes that these people carry deep hatred toward him. After saying this, they part ways and head home separately. When Takashi arrives home, his mother greets him. She explains that she meets the landlord earlier, and the landlord asks them to move out. Because of that, she plans to save as much money as possible so they can afford to relocate. Hearing this, Takashi apologizes for causing so much trouble and burdening her over the years. His mother gently shifts the mood and invites him to have dinner, reminding him to wash his hands first. Takashi follows her instruction without complaint. While preparing the meal, his mother mentions that Kanoko comes home today for a visit. Takashi immediately wonders whether Kanoko is doing well. His mother reassures him, explaining that Kanoko is currently dating someone and that it has been a long time since she last sees Kanoko smile like that. Takashi falls into thought about his older sister, then decides to call her, carrying quiet concern mixed with hope as he reaches out. On the other side, Kanoko's boyfriend informs her that there is a phone call for her. When Kanoko sees the caller's name, she reacts with visible surprise, which makes her boyfriend wonder what is wrong. Kanoko then asks for permission to step outside for a moment. After answering the call, Takashi apologizes for calling her so late at night. Kanoko immediately asks whether Takashi needs something urgent. Takashi explains that he truly wants to apologize, not only because of what is written about him on the internet, but also because people are now talking about Kanoko as well. The situation makes him feel deeply guilty and ashamed for dragging his sister into the rumors. Kanoko then mentions that her boyfriend is about to leave, so she intends to end the call. Takashi stops her for a moment and asks about Ken, wondering whether Kanoko has heard anything about him during that time. Takashi recalls that after he last talks with Kanoko, he tries to call Ken's house but cannot reach anyone. Kanoko explains that because of Takashi's situation, Ken is no longer able to attend school. Hearing this, Takashi is completely taken aback. Kanoko continues by explaining that Ken firmly believes Takashi does not commit the murder, and because Ken talks about Takashi every day, he becomes isolated by others. Kanoko relays what Ken's older sibling tells her, describing how Ken is bullied and pushed away. Takashi realizes that, because of his own circumstances, Ken is suffering. As Takashi's closest friend, Ken ends up hurting himself socially, and Takashi wonders whether Ken now harbors resentment toward him. After saying this much, Kanoko says goodbye, and the call comes to an end. Takashi remains stunned after the call. Kahilai's earlier words echo in his mind, especially about people who carry deep hatred toward him. The next day in Yokohama, Sasaki's friends excitedly talk about a sale where a famous brand is offering a 30% discount. They invite Sasaki to join them. Sasaki does not feel particularly interested in branded items, but her friends insist, saying that she is wasting her beauty if she does not dress more fashionably. They keep urging her to come along. At that moment, Ida overhears their conversation and asks whether the three girls are planning to go out together. After they confirm it, Ida says that she also wants to buy some new clothes and suggests going together. The group reacts with excitement. However, Sasaki's friends start wondering why Ida wants to join them and how she even knows them. Sasaki then admits that she only meets Ida not long ago. Her friends are surprised and ask when that happens. Sasaki explains that it is about a week ago. The girls praise Sasaki, saying that Ida is exceptionally beautiful, almost like Aphrodite, with perfect grades and a position in the student council. After that, Sasaki walks after Ida and calls out to her. Ida gently tells Sasaki to relax, reminding her that Sasaki's secret is not something she would ever share with anyone. Ida then asks whether Sasaki ever dates Sugita. Sasaki feels caught off guard by the question. Ida mentions that she once sees Sasaki and Sugita walking home together. Sasaki quickly explains that the situation is not what it looks like, that it is merely a coincidence because they happen to walk along the same road, and that she does not date Sugita. Hearing that explanation, Ida says she can finally feel at ease, which leaves Sasaki confused. Suddenly, Sugita appears and greets Ida. Sugita notices Ida and Sasaki standing together. Ida casually mentions that she and Sasaki are just talking about Sugita. Sugita becomes curious about what they are discussing. Ida laughs it off and dismisses it as nothing important. At that moment, Sasaki realizes that Ida and Sugita already know each other, and she begins to suspect that Sugita might have feelings for Ida.